What's going on, guys? Seth here doing a TLG Reacts to Marathon. We got a gameplay reveal trailer, we got a gameplay overview trailer, we got a hands-on trailer, and we got a cinematic trailer. So I'm going to be going through all of this. I have not watched any of it, although I have seen clips and pictures on X, and I've seen a lot of opinions, both okay to bad on this game. So I don't know what to expect. Going into it, though, I've seen the art style. I think it's both kind of crazy looking, bordering obnoxious, but I also like that it has its own vibe, its own look, and in a sea of first-person shooters out there, that a lot of them look very similar. I applaud them trying something, so maybe in motion I'll change my mind on how it looks, but I think it looks interesting enough. Yeah, I'm hoping for the best with this game because Bungie is a legendary dev, even though, now I don't know if you can make that case or not, but they've made some amazing games in the past, and I would love them to make more amazing games in the future. And I hope their one thing that I think they still nail, their pedigree in first-person shooters, the way they feel, the controls, general, just the way guns feel. I'm hoping that will be present in Marathon, but because I really don't have a frame of reference of what we're getting into here, outside of that, I know it's an extraction shooter and it's a reboot of a very old classic game that I think this probably will share very little with. I don't know what to expect, but we have a lot to watch here, so let's just probably jump into it. The first video I got is Marathon gameplay reveal trailer. I think this is just going to show gameplay without any kind of commentary, but we'll just jump in 3, 2, 1, and go. Hopefully it's a little more than just little blips like that, because I'd like to actually see what's happening here. Yep, I know who made it. Very neon colored, which is cool. Looks a little cartoonier than I was hoping. Guns seem pretty good-ish, like just from what I'm seeing. Gun sound effects are
the end of all things.
Got some impact to them.
But the dream is not over. My dream, yours. Now,
This is very retro.
run.
Am I gonna get in trouble for this song? Is this free to play? Because it looks free to play. Okay, you stab people. September 23rd. Interesting. Yeah, let's not play that song again. I'm gonna get in trouble for that. Okay, so general impressions of what I saw there. It's a vibrant looking game. It's definitely playing with some futuristic and retro thematics, which I think is kind of cool. The animations I wish were like a little better. Sometimes they look pretty good, especially within the first person view, which is going to be the most important, but like the way they're running around looks kind of choppy and stiff, hence why I said it looks kind of free to play. I also think that the environments, though I think intentional, they're detailed enough, but they're kind of very basic squared rooms that, like, look like they kind of just made a map and just dropped in some pre-made assets. Doesn't really feel like handcrafted, I guess. But that's just, basic impressions from seeing real quick, blips of gameplay here. We are seeing like boosting around. We saw a shield. I kind of don't like the way the shield looks, but it seems intentional, just like that shotgun, that everything's very squared. It looks very like, I don't know, 90s, I guess, like box art for this game when it came out originally. So I don't know if I like it or not, but I do like that they're owning a look, I guess. But yeah, this just kind of makes me interested enough to want to try the game to see how it feels. I wouldn't say that I'm hyped for what I just saw, but it looks interesting enough that I'm not like, oh God, what the fuck is that? And moving on with my life. So kind of curious. Also want to know, did it say or not? Is this free to play or is this a premium game? Because I would be very curious about that. Because free to play would make sense. Like most shooters nowadays, you want to get as many people on as possible and make money from them in other ways than just selling the game. But I do like premium games as well, just because they normally feel a little more complete. But we saw what happened with Concord, and Sony's not going to want another Concord. That would be very bad for them. And we saw how quickly Concord got pulled in record time. Very crazy. Trailer's okay. All right, let's move on to the next thing. We have a reveal cinematic short. This is 8 minutes, but it's like it's a movie or something. So let's just watch it in 3, 2, 1, go. And I'm sure this game will have like a story to it, lore, all that stuff. But I'm curious about how story-centric it will be, considering it's just an extraction shooter. Is this directed by like Neil Blomkamp or something? I can't even fucking say his name. Looks like one of his movies. Gross. See, this has kind of like a cool Death Stranding. This has like a cool visual vibe to it. I almost wish the game looked like this. It's like disturbing in a good way.
I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies.
Man, if this was a
Whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that it spoke to well those passions red which yet survive."
This would be a great trailer for a single player or co-op shooter.
Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, lifeless things. And the heart that fed.
Welcome once again. Once again. Often you shall feel.
I mean, it feels just like what it is, right? Like $1 trillion. Like $1 trillion.
Sakaguchi Genetics sent a reminder. Your shell repayment is coming up and will be charged against your line of credit.
Yeah, I know. Do you mind if we skip the formalities this time? Got a big contract waiting down there, so.
Understood. Let's proceed with your grounding exercise. Are you familiar with this item?
That's my lucky charm. Yeah. It's supposed to be my lucky charm.
I like the helmet. That's pretty cool looking.
Can you identify her?
Yeah, that's my mom. That's your mother. Your mother.
Now,
You know that's
consider
your
this. Do you recognize this child?
Who are you? I don't know.
It's you.
What? Really?
Whoever directed this, they should have been in charge of, I don't know, maybe the trailer that I watched or the game. Because this, like, tonally feels pretty different.
Hey, what's that you always tune into? Worth anything?
I don't know, but I like it. It speaks to me.
Let me listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
You ever wonder what happened to these people?
It's not my business.
And this music is. You'll have a tough time finding a buyer.
Good. It's not for sale. Give it to me.
Sounds like Adam Jensen. What happened to our buddies?
This is so cute. I don't.
And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck. Round the decay of that boundless wreck. Boundless, alone and level sands stretch far away.
Do you recognize this child?
I don't know.
can't read that shit. Co-produced by Bungie. Yeah, it makes sense because that felt pretty different than what I've seen so far. Okay, so quick impressions. I actually really liked that cinematic short. I thought it was actually really well done. Like whatever game that is, I would want to play that. We'll see in the next video if this translates into that, or if there's any connective tissue outside of visual aesthetics. But yeah, whoever directed that did a really good job. That was actually probably one of the more interesting trailers I've seen for a game in a while. It felt very, art house in all the cinematography and stuff, and the music, and very experimental camera angles. Some really chaotic shots of people, running and getting shot, and just chaos happening. Yeah, if that was like a story-driven game coming out, or some kind of cooperative game, that would have had me really hyped. But that we're getting a extraction shooter, which I like extraction shooters, so I'm part of the demographic that's going to want to play any extraction shooter that comes out, as long as it looks good. I don't know if it translates well into just the online PvP game, but maybe it will. So I don't know, but I actually really liked that. Definitely play a game based off that trailer, but I've already seen what the game looks like, and it looks fine. So, all right, let's move on to the next video, which is a gameplay overview trailer. Hopefully this will explain a little bit about the game to get me a little more excited for it. All right, let's watch this in 3, 2, 1, go. One thing I'm going to give them real quick, though, is I love that Bungie is doing something that feels very... I mean, they make shooters, and they already have, like, PvP in Destiny, Destiny 2, Halo, so this isn't, like, crazy that they're making this game, but that they're making an extraction shooter, and also it has, like, such a different vibe to it. It's refreshing coming from Bungie. That's not me saying this game is going to be great or whatever. I'm just saying... or bad. I'm just saying I'm glad they're doing something that doesn't feel like, another Halo, another Destiny. It feels like something else. And so that's good to see from them, considering they haven't made a brand new game in, I think, over 10 years. So hopefully, they have a solid plan for this game. All right, continuing. Yeah, this looks more cartoony than I wanted. Kind of sucks. I liked the vibrant colors, but you can see almost like a cell shading going on there, and I'm not a big fan of that.
Marathon is a team-based extraction shooter set around the mysterious and cutthroat world of Tau Ceti 4.
Okay.
You are a runner. A cybernetic mercenary who's given up their human form for a biosynthetic shell with unique abilities and stats, capable of both tactical and fast-paced combat. Here you'll find...
This is a nitpick, and I'm sure anybody who's really excited about this game doesn't want to hear this shit, but when I see stuff like when he threw that grenade, like the animation of it and how it hit the ground and kind of bounced really looks like a mobile or free-to-play game. So... very small nitpick, but these details matter. Like,
and fast-paced
that didn't look that great. Also, the animations of being shot and shit
of
looks
up to 3
not
players
great.
Across a variety of zones and points of interest. You'll face rival runners in zones of up to 18 players.
That's quite a bit.
Countless security forces and otherworldly threats. To scavenge the remains of a lost colony for glory and fortune. The environments of Tau Ceti 4 are filled with weapons, materials, and equipment you can scavenge throughout the map.
Okay.
Before deploying, you'll strategically build your loadout and select a runner to ensure you're equipped for the run ahead. Your objective is simple. Get in, gather as much loot as you can, and make it out alive. Die, and all your gear will be up for grabs. Survive, and your loot can be taken into future runs as you grow in power and fill your vault.
Hence extraction shooter.
Death is inevitable, but it's never the end. Think quickly on your feet and outplay your opponents, and in your next run, you and your teammates will be the ones coming out on top. And even if you're down on your luck, factions can sponsor you with a fresh loadout, so you can get right back into the fight.
Okay. So what is that like when you can grab like a free hunter in Hunt Showdown? You have a sponsor that can just get you in there and get going.
Its best-in-class first-person multiplayer action to the forefront.
Hoping and praying.
Dynamic and tactile gunplay. Runners with unique playstyles and customizable builds create highly dynamic and strategic team fights.
That was very Destiny and Halo looking when he shot the ground, and you could see like an overshield like flash, and they just like bounced away. So there's definitely some Bungie pedigree there.
You're on a zero-to-hero run, or high-rolling with powerful gear. You'll need to use your best judgment when you decide which fights to pick and how. Because no matter how geared you are, players with skill and strategy will always have the edge. Marathon is designed to be played in crews, with contextual pings, shared objectives, and down but not out, to streamline playing with your friends. Death is not the end. And if you're the last one standing, you can overcome the odds to revive your teammates and get out with your hard-earned loot. And if you believe your skills alone are enough to conquer any challenge, we give you the freedom to opt out of crew fill to take all the glory for yourself as a solo runner. No two runs in Marathon ever play out the same. With dynamic events, variable weather, and unpredictable players, you'll have to adapt on the fly if you want to survive. Each run has a time limit, and anything can happen while you're chasing your objective. Looking to unlock upgrades or increase your faction reputation? Slip into the shadows as Void and ghost past your enemies. Search the map for rare materials and profit opportunities without being discovered. Want to push enemy teams and steal their loot? Bring in Glitch with agility implants and your strongest weapons to disrupt rival crews. Running support for your friends? Grab extra equipment, shield charges, and a specialized backpack to be the lifeline they need.
So they basically have like heroes from a hero shooter. They have like their own, from what I'm gathering here, I could be wrong, let me know in the comments. It sounds like they have specific characters with their names that have their own specialties that you're going to pick from, and then obviously build from their equipment, weapons, stuff like that, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, be curious to see how that works out.
You're always free to experiment with team compositions, and the only limit to how you want to play your runner is your loot and imagination.
It's an interesting visual effect.
Endgame challenges, ranked play, discovering secrets, seasonal storytelling, community events, and more all await you in Season 1, where you and your friends will start to unravel the mysteries of Tau Ceti 4. Remember, you're only ever one run away from your next big score.
Okay, so thoughts here. Visual style in this clip really just kind of shows off how cartoony it looks, which is kind of a turnoff. But when they're in there actually shooting each other and stuff, you don't notice it as much. Outside of the visual style, which is very, very unique, it sounds like a fairly rudimentary extraction shooter. Get in, loot stuff, get out. If you die, you lose your shit. It looked like you could revive your friends, which is, cool. It would be a little more interesting if there's like systems involved with that, but if you just revive people, whatever, different extraction shooters do different things. That there are characters with specific abilities will be interesting. Not opposed to that. I'm just used to a lot of games like, if you play a Hunt Showdown, you get perks and kind of craft your own characters. That this has kind of like a baseline of what these characters will be, and then you build on top of that is interesting, especially if you're playing as another team, you can kind of see their team comp and start calling things out. So your teammates, after a while, you get familiar with the game, you're going to know what they're capable of. So that will make it probably more competitive feeling, because it's bringing in that like that data of what to expect from certain character types. And so that will be very interesting. I definitely think the agility-based one is the most interesting sounding one to me. Also, the defensive guy sounded cool as well. I like the idea of having a shield and blocking damage, stuff like that, being more of a tank. But yeah, I would be interested in trying all of them. And the shooting looks pretty decent. If anything, I'm watching this, the gameplay, even though a lot of the guns seem like their recoil's non-existent, like they all shoot like lasers. But if they all shoot like that, then I guess everybody's on the same fucking page. But the shooting, the sound effects are okay. But the shooting looks fun. Every time I see them shooting each other and using different abilities and using shields and just getting into the mix of like how many different things you can use in different scenarios makes it seem dynamic, and that looks fun to me. So, the one thing this game has to nail, like any other first-person shooter, is it fun? And that's what I said. I think when me and Chevy talked about the general visual style of this game, is for me personally, I think it's a gamble, because I think the visual style could be interpreted differently based off how this game's received, because I'm looking at them like it's kind of crazy looking. If the game's like really fucking fun and plays great, I think it's kind of own that unique style, and I'm going to start viewing it more positively, even though I think I'm pretty positive about it. But if the game like kind of sucks and flounders and like doesn't really nail anything, or doesn't really like justify why it exists in this genre or why Bungie made it in the first place, I'm going to look at the art style and go like, well, that was kind of wasted. That unique art style really didn't matter, and move on with my life. So especially with games like, Arc Raiders coming out, another extraction shooter, the market's just going to get more thick with extraction shooters. And so they're going to have to, do something here to make me choose this over other games. And so, yeah, that met with the art style, I think is a pretty big gamble. But if it's a fun game to play and I get hooked on it, and they got all these things planned for it to keep people invested, I can see myself playing this game. I'm definitely going to try when it comes out. I'm definitely going to try this game. I'm just curious to see if it's free to play or premium. If they've mentioned that, I haven't noticed it. So again, let me know in the comments. I can look it up after this reaction as well. But very curious about that as well. And it's Bungie. I think they could get away with it. Even though I know a lot of people bitch about Bungie a lot, and I'm not saying they're wrong for doing that. But Bungie doesn't have the best reputation now, but they do have a legacy to them. So. All right, so let's finish this out and watch the first hands-on preview. I want to kind of hear somebody who's actually played the game talk about what they think of that. This is via IGN. If you guys have a better video out there, let me know. I can react to that as well. When it comes to like people who had their hands on, I read a couple things on X, people saying that it is actually really fun to play and feels good, which I'm not surprised to hear that, but yeah, let's watch this and hear what they have to say. In 3, 2, 1, go.
If Escape from Tarkov is the PUBG of the extraction shooter, boldly striking out into a new genre despite humble origins, then Bungie's upcoming shooter Marathon is the big budget refinement that could become the emerging category's Fortnite.
Sure, that's fair.
Coming from a studio with a pedigree for first-person shooters that's virtually unmatched, and which wields the resources to take a good idea and reimagine it in a disturbing, beautifully detailed sci-fi universe, it's easy to see how Bungie just might pull it off. But with a concept that's so inherently geared towards the hardcore PvP crowd and such a clear departure from what they've done in the past, it's certainly not without risks, even if they do manage to capture the usual FPS magic they're known for.
I actually read on X that somebody from Bungie said that this game might not be for everybody, and that's fine. They don't intend it to be. And this is something that I say about every video game ever, in the existence of everything ever, is that every game's not meant for everybody. So when people are like, that game sucks, I don't want to play it, well, then play something else. Like, this game is an extraction shooter. If you're not into extraction shooters, I highly doubt this will be the game that will get you into them. But maybe, like he made the point, this is the big AAA extraction shooter that really, might elevate the genre, and that could be true as well. But I think if you're not into the idea of like losing all your shit if you die in a shooter that's competitive, you're not going to dig it. So
Even so, after spending the better part of 2 days sliding and gunning my way through Tau Ceti's relentless ruins, I was hooked and can't wait to group up with my most try-hard friends and ruin people's day.
or get your day ruined. IGN.
Marathon is an extraction shooter where you and 2 friends are dropped into an extremely unmerciful wasteland to battle deadly enemies, including rival players, all in the name of loot and glory.
Okay. PvEV.
If you've played
P?
Escape from Tarkov, then you'll be familiar with this pvpve framing, which forces you to ante up any loot you bring along with you, as it's permanently lost if you fail to exfiltrate before time runs out or your team is killed. Those distressingly high stakes immediately got my blood pumping and made each match feel like the most important one so far.
It's extraction
After
shooters.
fighting tooth and nail against surprisingly challenging AI enemies and ruthless fellow runners to get a high-level rifle that could down most enemies in 2 hits, I wasn't about to let my guard down for even a moment and risk losing it all to some unworthy foe.
That is an interesting point that I didn't think about, is that this game's going to have NPCs, environmental hazards and things that other games have, other extraction shooters, but because Bungie is a AAA company, I would hope they could have AI and behaviors that feel a little more premium and more advanced than what smaller devs could possibly do. Outside of, I think Hunt Showdown's enemies on the map are all appropriate and work well enough, but Crytek's not like some small company. So, but a lot of these extraction shooters, they don't have like the best AI. So I would like to see, people who made Halo and Destiny, put that kind of effort into the enemies in this game that aren't real players.
If, like me, you bemoaned the quiet, undignified death of PvP's relevance in Destiny 2, then you might share my eagerness to see Bungie focused squarely on a competitive experience here. And everything I played so far indicates they've still more than got what it takes to pull it off. Weapons and movement feel crisp, fluid, and incredibly satisfying in that rarefied way that few studios can achieve.
Looks like it.
And the added element of hero shooter-like abilities, like one that lets you blast enemies with kinetic energy, sending them flying away, gives that extra kick you need to feel like a supernaturally powered badass. Marathon almost immediately feels fantastic to play, and as soon as I took out a robot who took a pot shot at me from the window of a nearby building and tried out his weapon for myself on a nearby enemy, it was love at first sight. This gets even better once you start to familiarize yourself with the class-based runners available to you, 4 of which I got to play extensively out of the 6 that will be available at launch. Glitch is all about mobility and controlling positioning, and has abilities that help her move fast, jump to areas others can't reach, and push enemies away with a blast of kinetic energy.
Sounds cool. Sounds like something I would play.
Locus is a tanky soldier who can pull up a shield to block incoming fire and launch a flurry of homing missiles at enemies.
And Josh can play that.
While Blackbird is all about intel and using her gadgets to ping any enemies within an area for the whole team, and sending out little robotic drones to seek and destroy nearby enemies.
That ping is gonna really fucking matter.
My personal favorite, though, was Void, a deft ninja who can turn invisible for a time and deploy massive clouds of smoke to lose and confuse the enemy within.
Yeah, that would be your favorite.
Camo filter engaged.
Each of these characters offers a completely different way to play Marathon, and by coordinating with my teammates, we were able to put together a balanced team of runners who complemented one another's strengths and helped make up for any weaknesses. that came in handy as we explored dark and forgotten places throughout Marathon's maps, which were filled with deadly creatures like a species of giant ticks who ran at me frantically, and surprisingly accurate robots who were much, much better at surrounding and overwhelming players than the vast majority of AI enemies found in other games.
It's good to hear. For people who don't play extraction shooters, a really interesting factor of a lot of them is that there are these NPCs roaming the map, and even though their difficulty varies in different games, the thing that's great about them is the dynamic of situations that you either choose to get into with these enemies or that sometimes just happen, and how that can affect other people in the area hearing that and getting involved. And so how he's describing these enemies being like advanced and doing some pretty aggressive stuff, I'm really curious to see how that is affected with the element of other players running around as well, because obviously they can just show up and pick you off, but hopefully the enemies are like advanced enough to aggress on them as well, making situations, you know, really feel awry. That'd be cool.
These foes was no joke, but the loot was well worth it. Whether it was finding a backpack that allowed for more storage space, a weapon that gave me better odds against a rival crew, or just some consumable healing items I could rely on in a pinch. Some of the extremely rare and powerful items, of which my team only found a handful during our matches, changed things up quite significantly, like a backpack that turned the user invisible whenever they interacted with a container while wearing it. Extremely useful in a game where you're being hunted by everyone else on the map.
That's really interesting.
Marathon's tensest moments, though, happen when you encounter enemy crews and inevitably clash in a bid to claim one another's loot. Maybe we'd spot a crew in the distance and stealthily follow them, waiting for the right moment to stage an ambush. Or sometimes we'd hear other players in the distance fighting off security forces and decide to go catch them when their guard was down, scooping up whatever goodies they were about to claim. And of course, sometimes we found ourselves on the receiving end of that ruthless equation and had to scramble as one of us was downed by sudden gunfire from a rival team. These moments are when the PvP magic really shines and leaves you with stories to tell your friends, like the time my group got entangled in a 9-player free-for-all and came out unscathed thanks to some well-timed smoke grenades. Or another time where both of my teammates
it
were
looked like he
killed,
got
but we
scathed
came back
there
to
a little
win
bit.
thanks to a clutch revive the other team didn't see coming. Just like the most epic, heart-pounding moments of a battle royale match, Marathon provided me with tons of memorable moments of elation after a narrow victory and the occasional sour taste of defeat. Once we'd gotten our spoils or completed an objective or two, it was time to haul ass to the exfiltration beacon and stand near it long enough to be pulled out of the firefight and return safely back to our base in
Okay,
outer
so it's like
space
Hunt,
with our
where you just
bloody
have to stand next to something and then
But lighting
extract.
that beacon also lets everyone else on the map know you're trying to make off with your goods via a giant blue light that shoots up into the sky.
So it, like,
for a
really
prolonged
telegraphs it,
period of
okay.
time. This makes your last moments in the area pretty intense, or if you're like me, offers some exciting opportunities to kill a group right as they're preparing to leave and benefit from all their hard work. The downside of Marathon's To the Victors Go the Spoils reward system is that, in a pretty short amount of time, those with skill will enter fresh matches with gear that easily outmatches less skilled players, making them even less likely to be able to pull off a victory. Bungie's gone out of its way to try and make it so a poorly geared squad still stands a chance against those with...
that will just have to come down to weapon balance. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors like abilities and stuff like that, and having gear that lets you be invisible when you're interacting with stuff. But if low-level starting weapons have the ability to kill people, if the TTK is balanced enough, there shouldn't be an issue. But if they have it so like higher end weapons are just like way more lethal, then yeah, it's going to feel imbalanced. But yeah, as long as all the weapons feel like they can kill people, it won't be so bad. But some games are really bad about that. Other games aren't. they're better at the balance. So we'll see what they do.
Loot if they play well, and you can always simply employ the strategy of avoiding other players until you've got a few extractions and some at least decent loot under your
Sure.
belt. But even so, it seems like it could get pretty demoralizing in short order if you run into a bout of bad luck and start to feel like you'll never catch a break. I was lucky enough to win the vast majority of my matches, and after the initial hump of stockpiling some basic equipment in my vault and unlocking a few permanent upgrades to make the going easier, I felt like even if I fell in battle and lost all my best stuff, at least I'd have some adequate backup gear to recover with. But that won't be the case for everyone, and I wonder how big the chunk of players will be who simply run into a brick wall in their first few hours, log off, and never return. At least
It's a valid
in Escape
question.
from Tarkov, you've got your Kappa case to hold your most valuable items and protect them from being lost on the battlefield. Marathon has none of those safety measures, instead opting for a system where you're given a sort of pity loadout called a sponsored package, which sets you up with some basic gear after you've been quite literally bled dry.
Your free
This
hunter.
definitely helps ice the wound of a string of bad luck, but might not exactly be the most comforting consolation prize. To be clear, it very well might be a good thing that Marathon seemingly refuses to compromise on its dedication to ensuring each match has real, keenly felt stakes, even if it turns some folks off from it. I certainly count myself among those who enjoy a bit of sweatiness and quite liked how invested I was forced to be every single time I deployed onto a map. But they definitely risk a situation where it feels like the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, to the detriment of those who are on the unfortunate side of that brutal equation. Time will tell before we know how that will shake out, but even in my short time with it, I already felt a bit of friction emanating from those on the server who kept dying repeatedly and felt like they were getting outclassed by those with quality loadouts.
Like I said, it has to come down to the ability of dynamic plays. There's got to be if you're able to out strategize people, that's good. And then because some games are kind of basic in that regard, but weapon balance is everything. In Hunt Showdown, I can grab really cheap early on weapons and still wreck people. Obviously, someone's gonna have an advantage if they have like really high end weapons because of the capabilities of being able to like zoom in really far away or like have a faster fire rate or something like that. But I mean, you can take like the starting shotgun, and if you lure somebody into close range, you can drop them like easily. So just like outmaneuver, out strategize people, and it's not an issue. So hopefully this game has a similar philosophy in how the weapons are balanced.
One thing that could be the key to preventing people from falling off is Marathon's ongoing meta progression system, which I found surprisingly engaging in my time with it. Even though your loot is probably destined to be stripped off your still warm corpse and stuffed into some rude opponent's backpack, you can at least comfort yourself in the various perk trees and ongoing quests you'll find in the menus between rounds of play. You might not have made it back alive from your most recent escapade, but maybe you were able to loot some chests from a specific part of the map or complete some other objective in your quest log before you went cold. In that case, you can at least still make your way through the faction quest lines and upgrade systems, which unlock new bits of story and improve your reputation with each of the 3 groups who have taken a marked interest in your progress. Doing so grants you perks that make the going a bit easier, like those that let you buy slightly better gear from the vendor in case you find all your existing loot confiscated by the enemy. Elsewhere, despite some clear indications that some kind of plot will be included in Marathon, even though multiplayer mayhem is plainly the focus, it's still unclear to me how much that story will matter or deliver something that makes me want to progress beyond just finding better weapons to use. As a mercenary called a runner, your consciousness is repeatedly uploaded to a synthetic body and sent into dangerous territory in search of riches. Beyond this basic premise and some really cool details, like how your artificial bodies are sewn together out of synth silk by robotic caterpillars, there wasn't a whole lot to go off of, and I could easily see this not being an area of particular focus for Marathon. That said, the world Bungie has built is every bit as beautiful as it is creepy and dystopian. And there are
Yeah, I feel like
moments-
this premise and aesthetic is just like screaming to go deeper in the lore. Like there's so much I want to know about this world. So hopefully they play around with it a bit. Don't just go like, well, yeah, that's some lore. Just play it, shoot each other. Don't worry about it otherwise. But yeah, there's much stuff here. I'm like, that's actually really interesting looking, and kind of makes me wish this was like a story-centric single player or co-op game.
where they satisfyingly hint at the events of the Marathon trilogy from the 90s. But Bungie also told me that they're not entirely following the events of the original games, and what little I saw did only slightly more than pay lip service to the world. Another question is just how much support and longevity we can expect from Marathon. Bungie has earned its reputation for mastering the live service model over the past decade of Destiny, and shows no signs of letting players down here, as they told me they already have plans to support Marathon with new maps, weapons, characters, and more as they develop it. But as always, there's the question of whether they'll do so at a fast enough pace to appease ever-ravenous players. And importantly, Marathon also plans to use the seasonal reset model found in the likes of Diablo 4, where you'll be stripped of your loot and progress at the end of each season to do so again with new content and a new meta to mix things up. While I could definitely see this working for Marathon, there's always the question of how they'll manage to incentivize making that arduous climb from scratch each season. After playing enough Marathon to get a pretty good feel for it in its alpha state, I'm already fairly confident it'll scratch the Bungie PvP itch that's been left unscratched for a number of years now. Here's hoping they'll knock it out of the park when it comes to PC and consoles in September.
Yeah, it looks like a Bungie PvP game,
For more
and I mean
gun-toting
that in a
action,
good way.
Check out our preview of upcoming heist simulator, Den of Wolves. Or if you'd rather mix
We already
things up
reacted to
with
that. If you
Mario
guys
and
are
Friends, our
curious,
first
we also
impressions of
reacted to
Mario
that as
Kart
well.
World.
So
And
if
for
you want to
everything
know
else in the
what we
world
thought
of
of
video
Den
games,
of Wolves
stick
and the Switch 2, we have videos on that. So yeah, overall, this sounds interesting. It looks interesting. Not really super hyped on it, but honestly, after watching some of the gameplay, it does look fun. It looks like something that I could get into. I do like that there's permanent stuff to work towards. I do like that it's an extraction shooter. I like extraction shooters. The world looks interesting enough. A lot of varied locations, a lot of different weapons, which is definitely exciting. I am curious about balancing as he brought that up, being worried about like people just starting, people who aren't doing great, getting kind of left behind, while people who are like high skilled, moving forward and just having the benefit of always having the better gear because they're winning more often, which in a sense is going to happen like every shooter ever. Unless it has skill-based matchmaking, which I know people have their issues with that. But it really does come down to, because that's going to happen no matter what, it comes down to how they balance the game. Hopefully just the game has, a pretty quick TTK outside of shields, and that most weapons will be able to put someone down. And maybe the big different like factor between the weapons is maybe like the stuff you have equipped to the weapon, or maybe there's some abilities to the weapons, or maybe some super unique weapons to do interesting things. But on that, I think if you have a pistol, you should be able to kill somebody with it, or a basic rifle, and then just get weapons that just come with better stuff on them. I don't know. I'm not a dev, but yeah, I feel like some people have already handled this fine, so hopefully Bungie can do it. And yeah, just the overall flow of combat I think looks really good though. Looks fun. It reminds me of like a hybrid of Destiny and Halo, while not being as bunny hoppy as Halo and Destiny. So it has like a slightly different cadence, which I kind of dig. yeah, I think this will be fun to play with friends, but I won't know until I try it. But I definitely am interested in playing it. So overall, I think it looks cool. I will definitely keep an eye out for it and try it out when it comes out and hope for the best. And also really curious to see how they support the game, especially if the game, I think it's going to do fine, but if it doesn't do well, I'm sure they'll cut support pretty quick, because I don't know if they're going to want to have to support multiple service games if one's kind of lagging behind. But I do think it's time that Bungie does like something, because they've just been milking Destiny 2 for so long now that it's time to try something else out. And I do agree with this dude that them just focusing on PvP is exciting, because PvP in Bungie games is always fun, and their story, single player and multiplayer aspects are fun as well. But they do PvP well, and if they can just focus on only PvP and not have to shuffle two different things, I think they'll do pretty well with that. So we'll see. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about all the things that we watched for Marathon. Are you sold? Are you not sold? Are you kind of in between? Are you really excited for this? What were the more interesting things that you noticed in all these videos? And maybe there's something you are concerned about. How do you feel about the art style? What are you hoping for when it comes to this as an extraction shooter? Would you have preferred it as a different type of game? And tell me your thoughts in general about Marathon in the comments below. But I've been Seth. Stay tuned. We will have more episodes coming soon. We got a taste cast coming up. And yeah, got more stuff coming. So stay tuned for that. Until then, I've been Seth. Until the next episode, have a good one, guys, and take it easy.